Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Transmigrated to a medieval Pokémon world. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 11, The First Wooden House, completed. Zorua, the tricky fox Pokémon, was naturally adept at weaving illusions to confuse its foes. In the wild, Zorua could take on the form of humans or other Pokémon, masking its true appearance to shield itself from danger. In rare cases, it might even mimic the very opponent it faced, relying on their fear and confusion to make a quick escape. But this little one's illusion was far from perfect. In the blink of an eye, the mirage unraveled, and its true form reappeared. It's back! Anna's eyes shone wide, sparkling with curiosity. Yet at that very moment, she noticed the Zorua's body stiffen. It crouched low again, lips curled, a low growl rumbling in its throat. Anna froze. What? Is it growling at me? No way! Hey, I was the one who just saved you. But then a chill crawled across her spine. A vast shadow loomed over her and the small Pokémon. The truth struck her like lightning, the Zorua wasn't threatening her at all. It was warning her. An enemy was coming. Heart pounding, Anna spun around. Behind her stood a beast nearly 3 meters tall, its thick white pelt bristling with frost. A bear tick. Ooh-oh-woo! The tundra beast roared, swinging its massive claws. The strike tore clean through Anna's cotton coat, icy talons slicing so close she felt the sting of pain on her skin. Her body jolted with adrenaline. Gritting her teeth through the burning ache, Anna scooped the trembling Zorua into her arms and bolted. Roar! 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 The bear tick bellowed furiously, enraged that its prey dared flee. It charged after them, snow crunching like thunder beneath its paws. But the forest floor was slick. The blizzard had ended, yet the hardened snow, polished by the biting wind, had become a treacherous sheet of ice. Anna's foot slipped. In an instant, she and the Zorua tumbled forward, rolling uncontrollably down the slope. Ah! Wha! Their terrified cries rang out together as the world spun around them. At the end of the slope loomed a sheer cliff. Anna's eyes went wide with horror. A stabbing pain shot through her body, and darkness swallowed her whole. Meanwhile, far from the forest's peril, life in the camp pressed on. Building a log house was a tedious and demanding task. After listening carefully to the carpenter Tucker's explanation, Lucien understood the general process needed to construct a cabin that could withstand the brutal cold. First, they needed flat ground with deep, compact snow and a wind-sheltered foundation to ensure stability. Tucker surveyed the valley, quickly selecting a suitable spot. By midday, with the effort of dozens of hands, they had already felled a great number of trees. The logs were hauled from the forest by strong men, while others trimmed away branches with axes and saws. Then the true construction began. To conserve materials and maximize warmth, Tucker designed the house in a dome-like style, reminiscent of an igloo. Mortise and tenon joints bound the beams tightly, while snow, logs, soil, branches, and leaves filled the gaps to block out the bitter wind. Faced with the specter of death in the snow, everyone worked with desperate determination. The efficiency was staggering. By nightfall, the first winter-proof cabin stood finished. At night, the newly built cabin glowed with firelight. Flames crackled in the hearth, and above it hung a pot of oatmeal porridge, sending waves of warm fragrance curling through the room. The gaps between the wooden logs had been carefully sealed, and though the cold wind howled and shrieked outside, not a single draft slipped through. The people sitting inside were filled with awe and relief. Faces that had long been dulled by despair now shone with excitement. This simple wooden cabin, nothing more than a shelter of logs, was a miracle to them. It was proof that they could endure. If they worked together, each family could have a cabin like this, and perhaps, they might survive the winter after all. Lucien stood among them, calm and steady. He didn't show it outwardly, but a weight had lifted from his heart. Fortunately, the cabin works. If we continue like this, getting through the winter may truly be possible. Thank you all for your hard work, Lucien said, his voice firm yet warm. Rest early tonight, and tomorrow we'll continue. Yes, Your Highness. The reply came back with renewed spirit, the people smiling for the first time in days. Lucien smiled faintly and turned to leave with Dratini nestled against him, ready to rest. But just as he stepped outside, a woman stumbled toward him, her face pale with desperation. When she saw him, her eyes lit up as if she'd found the last ember of hope. Your Highness Lucien, my daughter, Anna, is missing. Please, save her. Lucien's eyes narrowed slightly. He remembered Anna, the 10-year-old girl who had boldly answered him during his speech, her spirit a spark among the people. What happened? Tell me carefully, Lucien said, his tone calm but commanding. The woman sobbed. This afternoon, Anna returned from Dr. Lila's tent. She was reading a book. I only stepped away for a short while, but when I came back, she was gone. At first I thought she'd gone to play, but she never returned, not even after dark. Your Highness, please, I beg you. Her husband had already perished on the journey. Anna was all she had left in this world. If she lost her daughter too, her world would collapse entirely. Lucien's expression hardened. Ryan, investigate the area near her tent. Yes, Your Highness. Ryan didn't hesitate. He turned sharply and led men toward the camp's edge. Meanwhile, Lucien opened the territory panel, his eyes quickly scanning for Anna's entry. Civilian name, Anna. Age, 10. Occupation, none. Special ability, none. Loyalty, 99, upper limit, 100. Life history, born in the 138th year of the royal calendar. In the 148th year, she and her mother followed His Highness Lucien to his fiefdom. Her name was still there. Relief brushed through him. That meant she was alive. Lucien raised his eyes to the weeping woman. Don't despair. I will do everything I can. Just then, Ryan returned, urgency in his steps. Your Highness. We found footprints behind the tent, they lead deep into the forest. Chapter 12, To the Rescue. Your Highness Lucien, you mustn't go. The old butler, Elif, quickly stepped forward when he realized Lucien intended to follow the knights into the forest. His voice trembled with urgency. You are the last hope of this territory. If something happens to you, the others will not survive this winter. The forest was dangerous enough in daylight. At night, when many monsters emerged to hunt, it became even more treacherous. I understand, Elif. Lucien pulled the hood of his cashmere cloak over his head, his tone calm but resolute. Don't worry. Ryan and his men have already scouted this area. The risk is low. And if danger comes, Ryan and the others will protect me. That's right. With a metallic clang, Ryan drew his blade, his face set with determination. The priority now was Anna's safety. If she had merely lost her way, that could be remedied. But if she had been cornered by a wild Pokémon, every moment wasted put her life in greater peril. Besides, no one in the camp knew more about Pokémon than Lucien. If they encountered one, he needed to be there to identify it. And as for the danger, running was no shame when victory was impossible. Elif saw that Lucien's mind was made up. He could only sigh, worry etched across his face. Then please, Your Highness, be careful. With torches in hand, Ryan and the knights followed the trail of footprints into the forest, Lucien walking at their head. As he had expected, they met no Pokémon along the way. The tracks stretched deeper and deeper, each imprint stark against the frozen ground. Lucien gave silent thanks that it hadn't snowed. If it had, Anna's trail would have been lost. Before long, they reached a clearing. The ground bore the marks of a scuffle, prints trampled into chaos, human and Pokémon alike. Ryan's voice grew tense. Your Highness, here. Lucian crouched, studying the disturbed snow. A fight. And not long ago. His chest tightened. Could a 10-year-old girl have survived an encounter with a Pokémon? Humans of this world were hardy, yes, but not unbreakable. He traced the direction of the footprints. They dashed off in panic, then abruptly vanished, replaced by the deep furrows of something rolling violently. Lucian lifted his gaze. Ahead, the land dropped away into a sheer cliff. Am I dead? Anna stirred, groggy, her body aching. She tried to rise, but a sharp stab of pain shot through her arm. Ah, it hurts. She clutched it, blinking at the shadows around her. Why am I here? For a moment her thoughts were scattered. Then memory returned in a rush, the monster, the chase, the cliff. Her face went pale. That's right, I fell while running away. But then her eyes widened with sudden dread. Wait. Where's that little guy? Anna quickly turned her head, scanning her surroundings. The pale moonlight spilled across the snow, turning the world cold and silver. That was when she saw it, a small figure trudging toward her, something clamped in its mouth. Her eyes lit up. That little monster, it's safe. As it drew closer, Anna finally recognized it. It was the fox-like creature from before. And in its mouth. Her breath caught. That's a vitality root. Anna froze in shock as the Zoroa padded right up to her side. It leaned toward her injured arm and bit down gently, squeezing the root until bitter juice dripped steadily onto her wounds. And before her wide eyes, the gash began knitting itself closed, the pain fading as flesh mended at a speed visible to the naked eye. Ha! Anna gasped, her mouth hanging open. Is it saving me? From the time she was little, her mother and everyone else had told her the same thing: monsters are dangerous. If you ever meet one, run away immediately or you'll be killed. Yet here was one, nursing her wounds instead of tearing her apart. Maybe not all monsters hurt humans. The thought sprouted quietly in her heart. The little Zoroa gave a huge yawn, its fangs flashing in the moonlight, then padded over to a bare patch of snow and curled up to sleep. Hey! Aren't you cold? Anna blurted. Zoroa cracked one eye open at her, then snorted softly and shut it again. Anna grinned. By the way, I never asked your name. Hello? My name's Anna. Woo. The fox gave a low murmur, almost like a reply. Watching it curl up on the snow, Anna's chest tightened. She ignored its weak protests, scooped it into her arms, and hugged it against her chest. Hee, see? You won't be cold now. Go to sleep. Zoroa stiffened in surprise, but after a moment realized it really was warmer this way. Slowly, cautiously, it let its eyes close. But Anna's voice piped up again. Hey, don't you want to go home? Won't your parents be worried about you? The little fox shook its head. Woo. Anna's eyes widened. You mean, you don't have a father or a mother? Zoroa only stared at her. It didn't need words, she somehow understood. Her throat tightened. No parents, no family. That's why it was waiting to die alone today. Her heart ached. She whispered, You don't have a mother, and I don't have a father. We've both lost someone important. Woo. The fox gazed quietly at the girl, then pressed its tiny paw pad gently against her hand, as if to comfort her. Anna's face suddenly brightened with excitement. By the way, little monster. Do you want to live with me? I live with my mom now. If you come with us, you'll have a family too. The Zoroa froze, startled. Anna kept chattering, her joy tumbling into worry as her voice softened. She tilted her head back to stare at the starless sky. It's just, we seem to be trapped here now. Chapter 13, Snover. Anna. The mountain path was treacherous at night. After much effort, Lucian and his men finally reached the base of the cliff. Below stretched a flat, snow-blanketed plain, with a few hardy trees clustered in the frozen earth. Beneath one such tree, several figures huddled together, backs against the trunk, seemingly asleep. Ryan's shout broke the silence. Torchlight flickered, and the figures stirred, their eyes snapping open. The Pokémon immediately fixed their gazes on the intruders. "It's a magical beast. Your Highness Lucian, be careful." Ryan's hand flew to his sword, his body moving instinctively to shield Lucian as he leveled a wary gaze at the creatures. What emerged from the shadows was a strange sight: small, squat beings resembling stunted palm trees capped with white snow. Their tan and white bodies, topped by snow-laden hats, made them look like plump fir trees brought to life. Lucian recognized them instantly. Snover. 3 of them, sitting quietly in the snow, blinking at the humans and their torches with round, curious eyes. They're not watching the fire, Lucian realized, they're watching us. Under the wary glares of Ryan and the others, the 3 Snover rose slowly and padded forward. "Be careful!" Ryan barked, blade scraping free of its scabbard as his muscles tensed. But before he could take a step, a firm hand caught his arm. "Don't attack!" Lucian's command cut through the night. "Your Highness?" Ryan's eyes widened. To lower his guard in front of monsters was madness. But Lucian shook his head calmly, his gaze fixed on the Snover. "They mean no harm." The men stared in disbelief. Lucian's mind flipped through memories of the Pokédex. Snover were mountain dwellers, docile by nature, who seldom encountered humans. Because of this, their first instinct was not hostility but curiosity. When they found human tracks in the snow, they gathered near, fascinated by the unfamiliar. And here, in the torchlight, that truth played out. The Snover halted 3 meters away, their large eyes glimmering with interest but not aggression. The silence hung heavy until Lucian broke it. "They're just curious. Because they've never seen our kind before." Ryan blinked, stunned. "So, they won't attack us?" "Not unless we attack them first." Lucian reached into his cloak and withdrew 3 dried almonds he'd saved for Dratini. Stepping forward, he offered them to the Snover with an easy smile. The Pokémon sniffed, their eyes widening as they accepted the gifts with surprising gentleness. Turning back to his men, Lucian's expression hardened again. "Come. We have no time to linger." "Yes, Your Highness." Ryan sheathed his blade. Casting one last incredulous look at the Snover, he and the knights followed their prince. The group continued on their way, while the snow-capped monsters stood frozen in place, staring after them in astonishment. Only when the humans had disappeared from sight did the snow-capped monsters lower their gaze to the fruit in their hands. One of them hesitantly took a bite. "Ahm. The other 2 immediately followed suit, quickly devouring the dried almonds. In the snowy night, the 3 snow-capped monsters studied the footprints left behind by the strange visitors, then turned their gaze in the direction they had gone, their curiosity burning even brighter. "Anna!" The cry echoed far and wide across the snowy night. Behind a hillside sheltered from the wind, Anna was shivering with cold as she clutched Zoroa tightly in her arms. "It's so cold, little monster, are we going to die here tonight?" Anna murmured softly. After all, she was just a 10-year-old girl. When she thought about never being able to see her mother again, Anna couldn't help but shed tears. If she wasn't there, her mother would surely be worried, right? "Woo!" The little Zoroa in her arms gazed at the girl with a puzzled expression. At that moment, its ears suddenly twitched, catching a faint sound from somewhere out in the snow. Zoroa instantly pricked up its ears and fixed its gaze in that direction. "What's wrong?" Anna panicked the moment she saw Zoroa's reaction. Could it be that the terrifying monster had chased them down? She followed Zoroa's line of sight and saw faint flames flickering in the distance. The firelight drew nearer. Although Anna couldn't yet make out who those figures were, her heart filled with surprise. She quickly stood up and shouted, "Hey! I'm here!" As if in response, the figures began to approach. Under the pale glow of the moon, Anna finally recognized their faces. It was Lord Lucian. Lord Lucian himself had come to find her. Anna's eyes immediately filled with tears.
We've found her, Lord Lucian.
Ryan shouted, his voice thick with relief.
Lucian let out a long breath.
He was just about to speak when, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed a monster hiding timidly behind the girl. Only half of its face was visible, nervously peering at the group.
That's a Zoroa? Lucian's pupils shrank in alarm. It's a monster.
Ryan and the others had spotted it as well, and their fear surged. Seeing this, Anna quickly cried out, "It's not a bad monster.
It saved me."
Ryan and the others exchanged bewildered glances.
Lucian, a little surprised, looked at the Zoroa and asked, "What happened?"
Anna recounted her entire journey, from her search for herbs, to her encounter with the monster, to her accidental fall off a cliff while being chased by another monster, and finally how the little monster had found the vitality root to heal her.
What's going on? Is this true? A monster would actually save a human?
The surrounding knights exclaimed in astonishment.
Anna quickly insisted, "I'm telling the truth."
She scooped Zoroa up in her arms, then looked at Lucian and pleaded.
"Your Highness Lucian, this monster isn't a bad one. Like me, it's lost its family. Can I take it back to camp? I'm worried it'll be in danger if it's left alone. Bringing an uncontrollable, unknown monster back to camp?"
For Ryan and the others, who had always feared magical beasts, and had even watched their comrades die at their claws, this sounded no different than inviting a wolf into their home.
"Please, Your Highness," Anna begged. "Ryan, do you remember what I told you before?" Lucian suddenly asked. Ryan froze. Those words from that night instantly resurfaced in his mind. Magical beasts are not uncontrollable beings. They are intelligent, they possess wisdom, and they can even understand human language. If the girl named Anna wasn't lying, then this magical beast's actions completely confirmed Prince Lucian's words. "In any case, let's return first," Lucian said. "Anna, take it with you." Anna's eyes lit up instantly, and she quickly answered, "Yes, Your Highness Lucian." Now that Anna had been found, it was time to head back. Because of her leg injury, she had to be carried on the back of a knight. After determining the direction, the group set off. Not long after everyone left, 3 round figures suddenly emerged on the desolate snowy plain.
They stood in the snow, staring at the footprints stretching into the distance, and then slowly began to follow them.
Chapter 14. Illusions. Pokémon, Zoroa. Type, Dark. Gender, Male. Ability, Illusion. Moves, Scratch, Leer, Hone Claws, Fury Swipes, Confusion. Friendship, 0. Birth record, Zoroa was born in the 146th year of the royal calendar.
147th year of the royal calendar, Zoroa's parents were killed in battle against other Pokémon, leaving him to survive alone. 148th year of the royal calendar, he was attacked by a bear tick and nearly killed, but was saved by the human girl Anna. The moment Lucian agreed to let Anna bring Zoroa back to camp, the population of his territory rose from 78 to 79. From that point onward, Zoroa was officially part of his domain. Lucian studied Anna and the Zoroa perched on her shoulder, a bold idea flashing through his mind. Dratini was still far too weak, lacking the power to contribute much in battle. Its true potential would only emerge after a long period of growth. But one thing was already clear: his own strength alone wasn't enough. If the territory were to survive, it needed more trainers, more people who could command Pokémon and defend their home.
So why not take Anna as his apprentice? Teach her what it meant to be a trainer. Zoroa, the tricky fox Pokémon.
Its evolved form, Zoroark, was infamous for deceiving its opponents with illusions before striking at the perfect moment. If this one matured, it could become a powerful force. Lucian felt his heart stir with temptation.
But suddenly, he noticed Zoroa's entire body tense, its gaze locking sharply in one direction. "Huh? What's wrong?" Anna asked, puzzled by its reaction.
The next instant, a massive figure lunged from the darkness, slamming a knight to the ground. Moonlight glinted off cruel, ice-sharpened claws as they slashed downward.
"Ah!"
The knight screamed as his arm was torn open.
A monster! Ryan's shout snapped everyone to attention, blades leaving their scabbards in a flash. In the flickering torchlight, Anna finally saw the attacker clearly. Her face drained of color as she cried out, horrified, "That's the monster! A bear tick, a brutal, carnivorous Pokémon." Its mere presence radiated crushing power, leaving no doubt of its overwhelming strength. Lucian's brows knitted into a deep frown. "Protect His Highness Lucian!" Ryan roared. He gripped his sword and swung with all his might at the towering beast. Steel rang against fur, but the blade only scored a shallow mark, unable to pierce its thick hide. The next moment, disaster struck. Beartick opened its jaws, unleashing a freezing gust. Frost raced across Ryan's sword, ice creeping upward until the entire blade was sealed in a block of shimmering blue. Ryan's pupils contracted sharply. "Dratini, Twister!" Lucian's voice cut through the chaos. Dratini opened its mouth, gathering dragon-type energy into a spiraling gale. The tornado erupted forward, slamming into Beartick with a booming crash. "Everyone, carry the wounded. Fight as you retreat, I'll hold it back." Lucian barked his orders without hesitation, his sharp gaze fixed on the beast. The attack hadn't done much. Beartick still stood tall, hardly slowed at all. "Your Highness Lucian." Ryan's voice wavered. He was a knight, how could he possibly abandon his liege? Despite the crushing pressure radiating from the beast, Ryan clenched his jaw and swung his half-frozen iron sword at the Beartick from the opposite side. But this time, the Beartick gave him no chance. "Rohar!" With a furious bellow, it slammed its massive ice claws down on Ryan's blade. The sheer force snapped the iron sword clean in two. Ryan's eyes went wide in shock. Beartick roared again, swiping with its massive paw and sending him flying across the snow. The other knights swallowed hard, their faces pale. The strength of this monster was overwhelming, beyond anything they could hope to match. Beartick pressed the attack, weaving through the scattered knights like a white demon. Its fangs and claws, colder and harder than steel, smashed them down one by one. In only a few breaths, the knights had fallen. Only Lucian and Anna remained standing. Now, with just two opponents left, Beartick crouched low and charged straight at Lucian. Lucian's face changed instantly. He tried to command Dratini to unleash Twister, but it was too late. With a brutal impact, both Lucian and the little dragon were hurled backwards, tumbling into the thick snow. HHHK. Ah! It hurts. Dratini crumpled on the ground, knocked out of the fight instantly. Lucian lay sprawled in the snow, his body seared with pain, momentarily unable to move. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught sight of Beartick charging again, this time at Anna and Zoroa. Anna's leg was still injured. Even if she wanted to run, she couldn't. She could only stare, frozen in terror, as the enormous beast bore down on her. "Ah!" Her voice trembled. But then, a small figure darted in front of her, planting itself between her and the monster. Anna blinked in shock. That little monster? Quickly shaking her head, she cried out, "No, no, run!" But Zoroa didn't move. It stood its ground, fixing the charging Beartick with a fierce, unyielding gaze. Despite the fear still trembling in its body, despite having nearly been beaten to death by this same Beartick before, now, Zoroa wanted to protect Anna. At that moment, Zoroa erupted with astonishing power. Purple-black energy began pouring from its body, rippling outward like a storm. And then, darkness fell. The entire forest was swallowed in shadow, as if night had suddenly descended. From within that gloom, eerie purple-red lights began to flare. 1, 2, 3. Phantom figures emerged one after another, surrounding the Beartick in a tightening circle. Until finally, dozens of ghostly illusions pressed in, crowding the beast from every direction. This bizarre sight startled the Beartick. It froze, turning its head in every direction, eyes darting warily at the ghostly figures radiating an eerie power. A heavy solemnity flickered across its expression. Then, without a shred of hesitation,
Bertic spun on its heel and fled into the snowy night.
That was...
Lucian, who had witnessed the entire scene, stood there stunned for a moment.
But soon, he understood. To protect Anna, Zoroa had unleashed its hidden potential, activating its ability, illusion. It conjured the terrifying vision of an entire Zoroark tribe, and the bluff was enough to send Bertic running.
In that instant, as Lucian's gaze fell upon the girl and the small fox Pokémon beside her, a strange yet familiar feeling welled up inside him.
Yes, this was the way humans and Pokémon would one day live together in that distant future. You saved me. So I'll give everything to protect you, even if it means my life. Chapter 15, Dratini's Determination.
At some point, snow began to fall again.
Lucian and the others, supporting each other, hurried back.
Before they even drew near, they could already see the campsite nestled against the vast snowy night. Fires burned within the camp, and figures stood at the forest's edge, craning their necks anxiously to peer into the darkness.
Seeing this, Lucian couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Your Highness Lucian, they're here to greet us.
Although Ryan had been knocked aside by Bertic, he was otherwise mostly unharmed, just a few scrapes and bruises. Whenever this sort of thing happened, Lucian couldn't help but marvel at the extraordinary constitution of humans in the Pokémon world.
Even after being struck full force by a 260-kilogram Bertic, they didn't die outright.
The worst of it was a fractured bone suffered by one knight who'd landed badly.
Your Highness Lucian.
The old butler relief and a group of civilians came hurrying toward them. Anna's mother, Ellie, rushed forward to embrace her daughter, her trembling hands running across Anna's arms and face to check for injuries.
Anna scratched her head sheepishly. Mom, I'm fine. But then Ellie's eyes fell on the small fox-like creature in her daughter's arms.
Her face drained of color. She immediately recoiled in fear, crying out, "A beast!"
Anna, throw it away. Don't worry, Mom. It's okay. This one saved us. Anna blurted out.
Ellie was still terrified, and the other civilians exchanged uneasy, bewildered looks.
It's hard to believe, but this little beast really did save us. Ryan admitted with a sigh, still shaken by the memory.
He had learned something completely new tonight. Even a terrifying magical beast would risk its life to protect a human. The crowd gasped, muttering in disbelief.
What on earth was going on?
Instinctively, all eyes turned to Lucian.
Your Highness. Lucian's gaze shifted to the Zoroa in Anna's arms.
His voice was calm but steady as he spoke.
Perhaps we've been mistaken all along. These so-called magical beasts are not mindless monsters.
They are intelligent, wise, full of emotions, and even capable of understanding our language.
Anna helped it, and so it protected Anna in return.
It cast aside its fear, disregarded its own safety, and put itself in front of her.
If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it.
But it had happened, unquestionably. Upon hearing this, the faces of the people mirrored Ryan's earlier reaction in the forest: disbelief, confusion, and shock. To these ancient people, who had always viewed Pokémon as dangerous monsters, accepting the idea of living alongside them was not going to happen overnight.
This had to be a slow process. All right, that's enough for today. Everyone, go and rest.
Lucian ordered, his eyes sweeping across the crowd.
Tomorrow, we have new work waiting. Gradually, the crowd dispersed. So much had happened today that Lucian, finally feeling the weight of exhaustion, turned back toward his tent, ready to rest. But before he could leave, Ellie stepped forward. With a serious expression, she tugged Anna down to kneel before him. Lucian blinked in surprise.
Anna, quickly ask His Highness Lucian for forgiveness. Ellie pulled her daughter forward firmly. Running out of the territory without permission, and even putting His Highness Lucian in danger, was absolutely unacceptable. If anything had happened to him, the entire territory would have been doomed. Anna, only now realizing how reckless she had been, felt a cold sweat run down her back. She knelt down, clutching Zoroa tightly in her arms, and said with a trembling voice, "Your Highness Lucian, I'm sorry."
Lucian. Get up. Lucian's gaze lingered on her for a moment before he said evenly, Anna went out today to gather herbs. It wasn't done with bad intent. Just be more careful in the future.
Hearing His Highness forgive her daughter, Ellie's heart surged with gratitude.
His Highness truly is a kind ruler. Also, Anna, Lucian continued, his tone shifting, bring the beast to see me tomorrow. I have an important task for you. Ha? Anna was stunned. Then, as realization dawned, she quickly nodded. Yes, Your Highness. With that, Lucian turned back toward his tent.
The old butler, Elif, followed closely, his expression one of quiet disapproval.
After a moment of hesitation, Elif finally spoke. Your Highness, please, leave such matters to the knights. There's no need for you to risk yourself again. Lucian.
He had gone out to find Anna, yes, but also because, as a transmigrator, he longed to experience the real Pokémon world with his own eyes.
Still.
Thinking back, he realized it had been reckless.
Lucian exhaled and admitted, You're right, Elif. I won't do something like this again. At last, the butler released a sigh of relief. Then please, Your Highness, get some rest. With that, Elif withdrew, leaving Lucian alone in the tent.
Only Dratini remained by his side. Thanks to the vitality roots Anna had brought back, its wounds had closed, but its spirit had yet to recover. The little dragon lay curled weakly on Lucian's blanket, its round eyes still carrying the shadows of the Biartic's savage attack. Lucian leaned closer, his voice low and steady.
Dratini, do you want to become stronger?
The moment it heard his words, Dratini stirred.
Slowly, it lifted its head and looked straight at him. Woo!
As you saw today, there are still many dangers around our territory, Lucian said, his tone deliberately firm.
If we're not strong enough, sooner or later, we'll die here. Woo!
No Pokémon wanted to die, and Dratini was no exception.
But, it didn't know how to become stronger on its own. That was where a trainer came in.
Lucian continued, if you're willing, I'll do everything I can to help you grow stronger.
But the road won't be easy.
You won't be able to stay curled up under a blanket all the time like before, you'll have to face the cold winds outside, even when it's harsh.
Woo! As a dragon type, Dratini had no innate resistance to the cold or to ice-type moves.
The very thought made it hesitate, a flicker of fear in its eyes.
Lucian noticed.
This little dragon had once been raised as a pet in the palace, enjoying warmth, comfort, and luxury.
Asking it to abandon that pampered life would not be easy. He let out a quiet sigh.
If we don't become stronger, then sooner or later, we'll all meet the same fate we nearly faced today.
Woo! Dratini shook its head quickly. No, it didn't want to die. At that moment, the tiny dragon gathered every ounce of courage it had and cried out firmly, Woo! It wanted to get stronger. Good.
Relief washed through Lucian. He crouched down so his eyes met Dratini's, his voice steady and resolute.
No matter what lies ahead, I'll face it with you. So don't be afraid, Dratini. You and I will be the best partners in the world.
For a moment, Dratini just stared at him, wide-eyed. Then, deep inside its heart, something stirred, an unfamiliar warmth, born from the human's unwavering conviction.
Woo! Chapter 16, Food Crisis.
The next day, the people of the territory rose early. Under Ryan and Tucker's lead, they returned to work, cutting logs, hauling timber, and continuing the construction of new cabins. Inside his tent, Lucian sat at a table, quill in hand, carefully writing down everything he knew about Zorua, its typing, its special ability, its potential evolution, and even notes on its habits.
Your Highness Lucian, are you inside?
Anna's voice called from outside. Come in, Lucian replied. The flap lifted, and Anna entered, holding Zorua in her arms.
Did you sleep well last night? Lucian asked casually, glancing at the fox Pokémon.
It seemed fully recovered.
Yeah. Anna nodded eagerly.
The night before, her mother, though still frightened of the little monster, had nevertheless cooked them warm oatmeal porridge.
Anna had slept hugging Zorua, its fluffy fur against her cheek.
It had been the most comforting sleep she'd had in a long time.
Lucian chuckled. It looks like you two are getting along well. Your Highness, do you have an important mission for me today? Anna's eyes sparkled. She was eager to be useful to him. Instead of answering directly, Lucian asked, Anna, what do you think of creatures like these so-called monsters? Ha! Anna blinked. She lowered her head, looked at the Pokémon in her arms, and thought hard before replying. Monsters are very scary. They can spit fire or water, soar through the sky, burrow into the earth, and they hurt people. But your little one is different, isn't it? Lucian prompted. Yes. Anna nodded vigorously. My little monster is the best. Because it protects me. Lucian's smile deepened. This world is vast, and our kingdom of Ainduk is only a tiny corner of it. Magical beasts are just as much a part of the world as we are. In some ways, they're like humans, they have feelings, gratitude, and intelligence. They can even understand us. Anna's eyes widened. Have you ever imagined, Lucian continued, a world where humans and magical beasts live side by side? Where fire-type magical beasts help light stoves, water types put out fires, strong magical beasts haul goods, and flying types carry messages across the skies? A city where humans and magical beasts live together, like family. Any adult would have scoffed at such a vision. To them, it was unthinkable how terrifying creatures could coexist with mankind. But Anna, still a 10-year-old child, could believe it. After all, she had met one already, a little monster who had risked its life to protect her. Your Highness Lucian. She whispered. Does that mean this little one and I are family, too? Lucian nodded. It already sees you as its most important person. Otherwise, it wouldn't have stood against the bear yesterday. Little one. Anna hugged it tighter, her chest swelling with emotion. Zorua. Ha! Anna blinked. Zorua, Lucian repeated with a small smile, looking at the fox Pokémon in her arms. That's its name, Zorua. Zorua. Anna murmured softly, testing the sound. Sure enough, the little fox lifted its head and met her gaze. Also, Lucian said, this is information I copied down from a book some time ago. Perhaps it will help you understand Zorua better. He handed Anna the parchment he had just filled with neat rows of writing. Take good care of Zorua, Lucian instructed. That's the task I'm giving you. Ha! Anna froze. She lowered her gaze to the parchment in her hands. Attributes. Abilities, moves. What did any of that even mean? Biting her lip, she looked back up at the young lord in front of her with pleading eyes. But Lucian showed no sign of explaining further. At that moment, the old butler Relief requested an audience. Lucian waved Anna off. All right, let's stop here for today. If there's anything you don't understand on that parchment, ask Zorua first. Perhaps he can show you the answer. When the two of you understand each other better, come back to me. Anna looked bewildered, but nodded firmly. Yes. She hugged Zorua close and left the tent, parchment clutched tightly in her small hands. Once she was gone, Elif entered, worry etched across his face. Your Highness Lucian, there's something that troubles me deeply, the butler said. What is it? Lucian asked. Elif hesitated. Our food stores will only last until February. If supplies run out by then, I fear. He trailed off, but Lucian understood. It was a problem he had thought about before, though recent events had pushed it aside. He tapped his fingers against the table in thought. Then, recalling the caravan's cargo, he remembered they had brought seeds, several kinds that might be able to grow in winter. I recall there are farmers among our people, yes? Lucian asked. That's right, Elif confirmed. Have them come here. At once, Your Highness. The butler hurried off and soon returned, leading in several dark-skinned men with rough,
calloused hands.
These are experienced farmers, Elif introduced. Lucian brought out the batch of seeds. Take a look.
Tell me if any of these can be planted in this season.
The farmers stepped forward, examining the seeds carefully. Finally, one spoke.
Your Excellency, these rye, white radish, potato, and wheat seeds can be sown now.
But what? Lucian asked.
The oldest farmer rubbed his beard.
The land here is untouched wasteland. To cultivate it, we'll need time.
The weeds and shrubs must be cleared, the soil plowed and loosened, before planting can even begin.
Another farmer's face darkened with worry. Even if we plant these now, we won't see a harvest until May. That means we'll still be without food for at least 3 months. And without fertilizer, the yield will be poor.
The words weighed heavily on everyone present.
Lucian sank into thought. It was a serious problem indeed. If only there were grass-type Pokémon in the territory. In the Pokémon world, grass-type energy was special. It could substitute for fertilizer, enrich the soil, and, when cultivated daily, accelerate crop growth.
With their help, winter farming might have been possible. But in the depths of this frozen season, not a single grass type was to be found.
Lucian's mind spun with alternatives.
Foraging berries, catching fish and preserving them as salted stock, searching for wild fruit that might survive the frost. His thoughts were abruptly cut short.
Help! It's a monster. A monster has broken in.
The shouts came from outside the camp, filled with terror.
Chapter 17, Snover's Gift. Panicked cries echoed from outside the tent.
At that moment, most of the able-bodied men were still in the forest, felling trees and building cabins. Only a few women, children, and the wounded remained in the camp.
Hearing those cries, Lucian's heart tightened.
His mind flashed back to the bear tick he had faced the night before.
Could it have realized it was tricked and come seeking revenge? Lucian rose quickly to investigate.
But when he stepped outside and saw the so-called monster, he froze.
Those Pokémon were Snover?
Nearby residents screamed and scattered in panic.
The 3 Snovers stirred uneasily. Gra!
One of them caught sight of Lucian hurrying over.
Gra!
At its cry, the other 2 turned at once. Your Highness Lucian, please be careful, the old butler Elif shouted, stepping in front of him.
It's all right, Elif, Lucian shook his head. These beasts mean no harm. We met them yesterday while searching for Anna, they must have followed us here.
The Pokédex recorded that Snover were relatively friendly toward humans. Even if they appeared in villages, they weren't dangerous and often became companions for children. The 3 Snover clearly recognized him. As Elif stared in astonishment, Lucian stepped forward and greeted them with a smile.
Hello, Snover. Gra!
The 3 Snover responded happily.
The panicked civilians stopped in their tracks, nervously watching.
The next second, the Snovers suddenly moved. They spread their short arms wide and charged toward their lord.
Your Highness Lucian! A woman cried out, covering her mouth. Your Highness, please be careful.
Elif, ever vigilant, jumped in front to shield him.
But deep-rooted fear of beasts made him close his eyes and grit his teeth, bracing for impact.
Yet the expected attack never came. Instead, there were startled gasps from the civilians.
Elif cautiously opened his eyes. The Snover were gone? Gra!
Their cries rang out from behind him. His heart sank.
Had those cunning beasts bypassed him to attack Lucian?
He spun around, then froze.
Gra!
The 3 Snover had surrounded Lucian, clinging to his legs and crying with joy. They looked more like children begging for a hug than monsters.
What? Elif was dumbstruck. The civilians stared in disbelief. Suddenly, one Snover let go.
Beaming, it pulled a snow-white fruit the size of a baseball from its body and held it up toward Lucian.
This is for me? Lucian blinked at the offering. Gra! The Snover's eyes narrowed happily, nodding. Yesterday they had eaten the delicious dried fruit Lucian gave them. Today, they wanted to return the favor. Lucian almost laughed aloud. These Pokémon were so innocent, so endearing. He split the fruit into 4 pieces, handing them to Elif and the 2 trembling farmers nearby. Try some too. Your Highness Lucian, what is this? Elif asked, stunned. It's a gift from them, Lucian replied, taking a bite himself. Sweet, like a blend of ice cream and rock candy. Unexpectedly delicious. At once, an idea struck him. If we could process these fruits, they could serve as sugar. Seeing Lucian eat, Elif hesitated, then gritted his teeth and bit into his piece. His eyes widened instantly. So delicious. The other 2 Snover, seeing their companion's fruit enjoyed, eagerly plucked their own and offered them as well. Gra! They wanted Lucian to taste theirs too. Lucian couldn't help but laugh. You came all this way just to share these with me? Gra! The 3 Snover scratched their heads sheepishly, their snowy caps swaying a little as if embarrassed. Your Highness, what's going on here? Unable to contain his bewilderment any longer, Elif finally spoke up. Lucian gave a succinct account of everything that had happened the previous night. Then, looking at the 3 Snover now gathered around him, curiously studying their surroundings and him alike, he couldn't help but murmur, almost to himself. Maybe they just want to play with us? Play? Elif echoed the word in disbelief, then hesitated. Why do they look a bit like mischievous children? Lucian's eyes gleamed slightly. Haven't you noticed it yet, Elif? The butler blinked. Noticed what? This world is filled with countless kinds of beasts, Lucian said slowly, his tone carrying a calm certainty. Some are ferocious by nature, attacking humans the moment they appear. But others are as innocent and playful as children, naturally curious and even friendly to us. Elif froze at his words. Then, looking again at the 3 Snover staring up at Lucian with wide, curious eyes, he felt a jolt of realization. Yes, it was true. Just like the king had once forged a bond with the magical beast Victini. And just like His Highness Lucian now had a magical beast named Dratini at his side. Elif finally understood. Elif, Lucian said softly, tell everyone in the territory not to fear these 3. As long as we don't harm them, they won't harm us. Yes, Your Highness. Elif responded immediately, his voice carrying both relief and conviction. Lucian then turned his gaze back to the 3 Snover standing close by. Snover is a Pokémon of both grass and ice types. He had been fretting only yesterday about the lack of grass-type Pokémon in their territory. Yet now, 3 had appeared of their own accord. If he could foster a bond with them, perhaps they could help tend the fields. With grass-type energy, they might nourish the crops, shorten their growth cycles, and bring harvests much sooner. That could mean survival for his people. However, there was a complication. From what he observed, these Snover seemed to be far more skilled at wielding ice-type power than grass. Relying on them for farming might not be so straightforward. Still, that was a matter for later. For now, the most important thing was to establish goodwill with them. And maybe through these 3 Pokémon, the people of the territory could begin to shed their deep-rooted fear of all Pokémon. Having made up his mind, Lucian smiled and spoke gently to them. Snover, this is where we live. If you'd like, you're welcome to stay here and play. The people will come to like you too. I have important matters to take care of, but once I've finished, I promise I'll come back and play with you. Time was running dangerously short. They had to find suitable farmland and begin planting before the next blizzard arrived. It was no exaggeration to say that the very survival of his people depended on it. Lucian knew he couldn't rest easy unless he oversaw it himself. Hearing his words, the 3 Snover let out cheerful cries. Their snowy caps bobbed happily, and their eyes sparkled with delight. They had understood. They would wait for him to return and play. Chapter 18. New Residents.
Lucien, accompanied by two farmers, went out to scout the land surrounding the territory, searching for places suitable for cultivation. Meanwhile, Elif was left behind with a task he never thought he would be entrusted with, looking after the three monsters. The moment Lucien departed, the three Snover lifted their snowy heads to watch him go, their wide eyes gleaming with expectation.
Remembering his lord's calm expression, Elif braced himself. Clearing his throat, he greeted them with a stiff voice. You're called Snover, right? The three Pokémon nodded happily in unison. They actually responded. Even though Elif had seen His Highness interact with them the night before, now that it was his turn, the old butler still felt a strange rush of emotion. Then, one Snover plucked a round, snow-white fruit from its body and held it out to him. Its cheerful cry seemed to say, "Human, would you like to taste my fruit?" Elif froze. More than just one, each Snover offered its own fruit to him. The old butler's heart quivered. He had lived decades believing beasts were terrifying beasts, yet here they were, offering him food. "Thank you." Though resistance still lingered deep inside him, Elif gritted his teeth and politely declined. "I'm just not hungry right now." The Snover didn't seem bothered. They turned away and began looking around the settlement, eyes sparkling with curiosity. Everything here was new to them. From a distance, the civilians peeked out from their tents, whispering anxiously but not daring to come closer. Seeing their fear, Elif recalled Lucien's instructions and raised his voice to reassure them. "Don't be afraid of these three. They aren't like the other monsters we've seen. They won't attack us. Yesterday, Lord Lucien gave them almonds in the forest, so today they've come here to share their fruit with him in return." The people were stunned. The adults hesitated, unwilling to believe. They had seen with their own eyes how savage beasts could be. But the children's curiosity was stronger than fear. They had just witnessed the Snover give their fruit to Lord Lucien. So when the adults turned away, 3 children no older than 6 or 7 lingered. They crept forward, inch by inch, until one boy could no longer hold back his excitement. He took a few steps closer. The 3 Snover turned their heads at once. The boy's heart pounded. They were looking straight at him. Panic seized him. He stumbled over a rock and fell with a cry. "Ah! That hurt!" Before he could get back up, a snowy arm extended. The boy looked up and saw a Snover's face smiling down at him. "Ugu!" The Pokémon let out a friendly cry as it helped him to his feet. The boy froze. The monster had helped him. He stood there, dumbfounded, while the 3 Snover tilted their heads, watching him with innocent curiosity. After a long pause, the boy finally summoned his courage. You really won't hurt me?" The Snover looked puzzled. Why would they hurt him? One of them plucked another fruit from its body and gently offered it to him. The boy took a cautious bite. His eyes widened, then sparkled. Delicious. In that instant, all his fear melted away. Instead, joy took its place. He laughed and began to play with the 3 Snover. By the time Lucien returned from scouting with the farmers, he was greeted by an astonishing sight. Several children were gathered around the 3 Pokémon, giggling and climbing over them without fear. 2 particularly bold children were even perched atop one Snover's shoulders, while the Pokémon happily carried them. Lucien overheard one of the children laughing. "Snow beasts, your fruit is really delicious." Hearing the compliment, the Snover brightened and immediately reached for another fruit to share. But after patting its snowy body, it realized it had already given all of its fruit away. Its face fell in disappointment. But the sadness lasted only a moment. By tomorrow, the fruit would grow back again. Seeing this, Lucien let out a small breath of relief. As he thought, this was a good start. "Your Highness, how did it go?" The old butler, ever focused on business, stepped forward as soon as Lucien returned. Lucien nodded. "We found lands suitable for farming." The farmland lay on the western side of the territory, near the riverbank. After surveying the soil,
the two experienced farmers had concluded it was fertile, ideal for cultivation. They'll begin clearing and preparing the land this afternoon, Lucien continued.
The sooner we sow the seeds, the better. Yes, Your Highness. Elif bowed his head.
By noon, thin streams of smoke curled above the camp.
Lunch was ready.
The commoners shared their simple meal, steaming bowls of oatmeal, salted fish grilled to a golden crisp, dense black bread, and mugs of barley beer.
Lucien, as a prince, was served something finer.
Soft white bread, smoked ham faintly sweet with pinewood flavor, rich red wine, and a creamy fish soup still steaming in its bowl.
The maids carried the dishes into the tent one by one.
Outside, parents called their children back from where they had been playing with the snover.
Some of the children wanted to bring their new friends home to eat with them, but the adults, still hesitant and fearful, firmly refused. Mum. The three snover lowered their heads. They had noticed. Those humans didn't truly want them here.
Disheartened, the trio turned and began to shuffle away quietly, intending to leave the camp.
Lucien, watching the scene unfold, saw them about to go. He couldn't just let that happen. "Hey, Snover," he called.
The three turned in surprise and saw him standing not far away. The moment they recognized him, their eyes lit up.
"Would you like to join us for lunch?" Lucien asked warmly. "Mum."
At once, the Snover hurried over, their joy plain as day.
Lucien led them into the tent and had them sit at the table with him.
Dratini coiled neatly at his side.
Pokémon all had different eating habits.
Dratini, for example, ignored the bread and ham, happily devouring only the fish.
The Snover hesitated, scanning the spread of human food.
In the end, they reached for white bread, almonds, and figs, simple foods that appealed to them.
"Go on, try it," Lucien encouraged.
One Snover took a tentative bite of the bread.
Its eyes widened in delight. "Mmm. Delicious."
Lucien patiently waited for the three Snover to finish their meal before speaking.
"By the way, Snover, how about staying in this territory with us? If you live with us, we can play together forever." As grass and ice-type Pokémon, Snover didn't have large appetites.
In the wild, they survived in the snowy mountains by absorbing sunlight and eating snow.
That was exactly why Lucien was eager to invite them to remain in the territory.
If it had been a Pokémon with an enormous appetite, like a Snorlax, he would never have considered it.
The three Snover blinked at his words. They didn't fully understand what a territory meant, but the idea of being able to play with Lucien made them nod happily. Mmm. At that moment, a new notification appeared in Lucien's mind.
The number of his subjects increased from 79 to 82. Almost immediately, the satisfaction meter spiked upward.
+50. +50. +50.
In an instant, the total had climbed past 300. Lucien froze for a moment, stunned at the sudden surge. Then he glanced at the three Snover in front of him and quickly understood.
Unlike humans, their needs were simple.
They were gentle and innocent by nature, so long as someone was willing to play with them, their happiness soared.
What simple, pure-hearted Pokémon! Lucien muttered under his breath. But in truth, relief warmed him.
Whether it was using their grass-type energy to nurture crops or producing the sweet fruits that grew on their snowy bodies, the Snover would take a huge burden off the territory's survival. Of course, in return, Lucien resolved to do everything he could to care for them, whether by providing food suited to their tastes or simply spending time playing with them.
Chapter 19, Basic Herbalism. Dratini and the three Snover sat around the table, happily enjoying lunch.
Lucien opened his technology panel and began scrolling through the options he could currently unlock. At present, the agricultural era had 4 major technology paths.
Gathering, unlocked. Branch 1, Basic Berry Cultivation, unlockable. Branch 2, Basic Herbalism, unlockable. Animal Husbandry, unlockable. Basic Processing, unlocks basic recipes for agricultural and sideline products.
Fishing, unlockable. Basic Shipbuilding, unlocks basic methods for building small ships. Mining, unlockable, basic or theory, unlocks basic or smelting methods. The panel displayed a dense web of branching technologies. The agricultural era started simple, but the deeper Lucian looked, the more complex it became, each tree split into countless specialized branches. And yet, one rule was clear: to unlock a new technology, the preceding one had to be unlocked first. Farther down the list, Lucian even caught glimpses of advanced technologies unique to the Pokémon world. Pokeball transport system, fossil resurrection, and genetic engineering. But the cost to unlock those was staggering, 1 million satisfaction points each. "I'll be dead before I can afford any of that," Lucian muttered bitterly. For now, the key was choosing something practical, something that could immediately benefit his struggling territory. His eyes drifted back to the far left column. Gathering, already displayed as unlocked. Lucian froze. When did that happen? No, wait. Thinking back over the past few days, he suddenly understood. If a resident in the territory completed a certain advancement, the corresponding technology would automatically unlock. It was his earlier order to have the civilians forage berries that had triggered the unlocking of Gathering. "Not bad," Lucian said with a faint smile. "That saves me a lot of time." Now his focus shifted to the next set of unlockable options. Basic berry cultivation. Unlocks cultivation methods for oranberry, sherryberry, pechaberry, and citrusberry. Cost, 200 satisfaction points. Lucian tapped his finger against the table, deep in thought. Berries. They were one of the Pokémon world's most valuable natural resources. At first glance, they looked like ordinary fruits. But each berry held potent nutritional value and unique effects: healing wounds, curing poison, soothing burns or frostbite. Some even restored a Pokémon's move energy, known as PP in modern terminology. Yet, his territory currently had no berry trees at all. Unlocking the cultivation method now would mean little without seeds to plant. Worse, according to the memories he'd inherited from this body, berry cultivation was already known to humans in this world. Using up precious satisfaction points to relearn it felt wasteful. Still, Lucian's eyes narrowed. This branch eventually led to Pokeblock and Poffin crafting. Advanced technologies vital for raising Pokémon efficiently. It'd be smarter to wait, Lucian murmured to himself. Once my people find berry seeds in the wild, the tech should unlock automatically, and I'll save 200 points. For now, animal husbandry and fishing were off the table. The territory barely had any Pokémon, no Miltank, Gagote, or Wooloo to raise. Unlocking those branches early would be like a chef preparing for a feast without any ingredients. As for mining, no ore veins had been discovered anywhere near the settlement. Even if he unlocked it, the tech would just sit uselessly in his panel. That left only one truly practical choice. Lucian's gaze lingered on the second branch of Gathering. Basic herbalism unlocks simple wound remedies and healing medicine recipes. Yes. With the threat of wild Pokémon attacks and the lack of a Pokémon Center, learning how to create basic medicines wasn't just convenient, it was essential for survival. With this new knowledge, herbs could now be used to create healing remedies for people and Pokémon within the territory. No longer would injured people have to suffer without timely treatment. And with that, Dratini's cultivation and training could finally begin in earnest. Exchange. As soon as the 200 satisfaction points were deducted, a stream of recipes and brewing steps appeared in Lucian's mind. Basic wound potion, enhanced wound potion, antidote, burn ointment. Sleeping draught. Lucian carefully scanned the list, then took up a piece of parchment, dipped a quill into ink, and wrote each recipe down by hand. "Elif, take this to Lila," he said, handing over the parchment. With the biting cold of winter, Lucian had already noticed many civilians suffering from frostbite and chilblains on their hands, ears, and faces. These remedies would be invaluable. "Yes, Your Highness." Elif accepted the parchment and hurried off. Meanwhile, the three Snover in Dratini had already finished eating their fill. The arrival of the Snovers had caused a stir in the settlement. Some residents still feared them, while others marveled at their gentle nature.
After all, these monsters hadn't harmed a single person, instead, they had shared their fruits.
That afternoon, while the Snovers frolicked outside, curious townsfolk gathered nearby to watch. The younger children, just as in the morning, couldn't resist running over to play with them. Lucian's sharp eyes caught sight of one little boy slipping a small piece of bread from his pocket and offering them to a Snover. Clearly, the child had taken them from his own home.
For a moment, many onlookers lingered, watching cautiously.
But when they saw that the Snovers posed no threat, they gradually returned to their work. There were still trees to be felled, cabins to be built. To survive the harsh winter, everyone needed to pull their weight. Lucian was no exception. Leaving the Snovers to keep the children entertained, he set out with Dratany and several farmers for the barren land they had scouted that morning. This time, he didn't keep Dratany hidden beneath his cloak. Instead, he let the little dragon face the elements head-on. The icy wind howled across the plain, biting into skin and scales alike. Dratany shivered violently, his nose running as he whimpered.
Woo! It was freezing.
For a moment, Dratany nearly gave in to weakness. But then, she glanced at Lucian. Her master's face was just as red from the wind, his nose running as well, yet he stood tall against the cold.
Oh!
After a moment of hesitation, Dratany sniffled, straightened herself, and endured.
If Lucian was braving the cold, then she would too. Lucian watched her with quiet approval. Are you ready, Dratany? Woo! The little dragon gave a determined cry. Good. Lucian nodded with satisfaction. Then let's officially begin training. Your task for this afternoon is to use Twister 20 times on that boulder. Twister was Dratany's only offensive move.
But perhaps because he had grown up pampered in the palace, never needing to fight, her mastery over the move was clumsy and weak. In this era, humanity's ability to develop a bond with Pokémon was still extremely limited. The concept of a formal trainer system had not yet been established, and so Pokémon relied far more on instinct than structured training to fight. Lucian knew this well from the original owner's memories. In those days, large-scale battles were fought differently. Humans and Pokémon alike clad themselves in armor, charging into hand-to-hand combat.
Moves were rarely used, and combat resembled brutal melees rather than refined battles of command.
That was why, for Dratany, the most important thing now was not only to increase her proficiency with Twister, but also to learn how to control the flow of energy within his body. Meanwhile, beneath a broad tree within the territory, Anna sat cross-legged with Zoroa nestled beside her. She carefully examined the parchment Lord Lucian had given her earlier. Characteristics. Dark attributes. Moves. She murmured aloud, her brow furrowed in confusion. The more she read, the more baffled she became. After a long while of struggling, she finally let out a groan of frustration. Ah! This is so difficult. Zoroa, do you know what this psychic power means? Wah! Zoroa tilted its head, puzzled. But then, before Anna's eyes, a faint blue glow flickered within Zoroa's eyes. An invisible force, intangible yet immense, quietly gathered and then lashed out toward a nearby boulder. Bang! A violent explosion rang out as the stone split cleanly in half. Ah! Anna gasped, frozen in place, utterly stunned. The glow faded from Zoroa's eyes. Even Anna, however inexperienced, realized what had just happened. She turned to stare at her companion in disbelief. Zoroa, did you break that rock? Wah! Zoroa barked back proudly, as if to confirm. Wow, so strong. Anna's eyes shone with awe. Then, after a brief pause, her expression shifted as a sudden thought struck her. Wait. Could it be? She hastily looked back at the parchment, then turned to Zoroa again. Was that a move called psychic? Wah! Zoroa nodded with cheerful certainty. Anna's jaw nearly dropped. This wasn't just some instinctive reaction, her little monster could actually use the techniques listed on the parchment. To be sure, she decided to test it. Pointing to another line, she called out, "All right then, what about Scratch?"
In an instant, Zoroa's claws gleamed with a sharp white light.
With a swift strike, it slashed at the air, the energy radiating from its claws unmistakable.
Chapter 20, Trainer. Your Highness Lucian. Your Highness Lucian. Anna's voice rang out as she sprinted toward the farmland.
From a distance, she could see him working alongside several farmers, clearing weeds and brush, plowing and loosening the soil with hose. Not far away, by the riverbank, Dratini was repeatedly spewing Twister against a massive rock.
Your Highness, you don't need to help us.
Please rest, we'll take care of it, the farmers urged.
How could someone of noble blood labor with his own hands? But Lucian shook his head.
We must sow the seeds within 2 days.
If a blizzard strikes before then, we'll be finished. The territory was desperately short on manpower.
Most residents were still cutting timber and building cabins, leaving only these few veteran farmers for planting.
Every extra hand mattered. Lucian was no delicate prince. But the farmers exchanged uneasy glances, their faces conflicted. Lucian smiled gently. I only want to survive together with everyone.
If we're to live through this winter, both I and each of you must endure.
So right now, there's no need for ceremony.
At those words, many of the farmers' eyes misted over.
His Highness Lucian.
Truly a kind and compassionate lord who cared for his people.
Yes, Your Highness.
They bent to their work with renewed vigor.
It was then that Lucian heard Anna's voice again. What is it, Anna?
He looked up to see her rushing toward him with Zoroa in her arms, his brow lifting curiously.
Your Highness Lucian.
Anna exclaimed, excitement shining in her eyes.
I finally understand the parchment you gave me. Oh. Lucian paused his work. Tell me. Anna took a deep breath. Those names, Psychic and Scratch, they're the moves Zoroa can actually use.
She turned toward the little fox.
Zoroa, show His Highness Lucian.
Zoroa, the Pokémon yipped proudly.
Its eyes gleamed with blue light.
A surge of psychic force rippled outward, striking a boulder with a thunderous crack and splitting it in two. Then, with a flash of white light at its claws, Zoroa slashed the air with Scratch.
Anna spun back to Lucian, eyes shining. Your Highness Lucian, is this how it works? Lucian blinked, genuinely impressed.
He hadn't expected Anna to grasp the meaning of the parchment, or to command Zoroa to demonstrate so quickly.
This girl was talented. Well done, Lucian praised. I didn't expect you to understand me so fast.
Being praised by His Highness, Anna's heart soared with joy.
Just then, the farmland preparations were finished. Lucian left the sowing to the farmers and led Anna toward the broad river. Anna, he said, resting a hand on the panting Dratini's head, what do you think of the power of magical beasts? The power of magical beasts. Anna looked at Zoroa at her side, uncertainty clouding her expression. To ordinary people, magical beasts were terrifying magical beasts. Their powers were immense, some breathed fire, others summoned lightning. A single attack could threaten a human life. Yes, power was terrifying. Gathering her thoughts, Anna answered softly, the power of magical beasts is terrifying. No, Anna. Lucian shook his head gently. Power itself isn't terrifying. It's the misuse of power that's frightening. If you train. He gestured toward her partner. Say you and Zoroa were gathering herbs in the forest and a wild magical beasts attacked. Wouldn't Zoroa use his power to protect you? Anna blinked in surprise.
The power of magical beasts can be used for protection, she murmured. Exactly, Lucian said with conviction. When humans meet magical beasts, we can use our wisdom to guide them, to train them, to help them grow stronger. Then, together, we can use that power to protect the people and the things we hold dear. Hearing this new, unprecedented idea, Anna's eyes widened in wonder. Humans train magical beasts to increase their power? Lucian smiled. I believe you must have heard of similar names. Anna froze in thought. Lucien continued, Beast Master, but I prefer the term trainer. A Beast Master, someone who could command Pokémon and fight alongside them. Anna remembered that, a few years ago, a great Beast Master had visited Ainduk. At that time, the king himself had received him with full honors. His name was known throughout the land. The Beast Master, Aaron, had come from a faraway country and was famed as the messenger of Aura. I hope more people will come to understand, as you do, that not all magical beasts are frightening, Lucien said warmly. That they can use their power together with us, just as you and Zoroa did. Anna's eyes widened in disbelief. Then Lucien asked, Anna, are you willing to become my disciple? I will teach you how to be a trainer, how to train Zoroa, and how to grow stronger with it. Anna's mouth fell open, her face a mixture of shock and wonder. Your Highness Lucien. She whispered. A thought suddenly struck her, and she asked in a trembling voice, if I become a trainer, can I protect the people I want to protect? Of course, Lucien nodded. One day, a powerful magical beasts may attack this territory. When that happens, we will need you and Zoroa's strength to protect everyone. Your Highness Lucien. Tears welled in Anna's eyes. She sniffed and nodded hard. I will. Lucien smiled. Still calling me Your Highness? Anna quickly corrected herself, her voice ringing with determination. Teacher. Lucien nodded in satisfaction. As he glanced at Anna, his system interface flickered, revealing new information. Civilian name, Anna. Age, 10. Occupation, trainer. Special ability, none. Loyalty, 100, maximum 100. Biography, Anna was born in the 138th year of the royal calendar. In the 148th year of the royal calendar, Anna and her mother followed His Highness Lucien to his fiefdom. In the 148th year of the royal calendar, Anna became a trainer. Her role had changed, from an ordinary civilian to a trainer. Starting tomorrow, I'll formally begin teaching you what it means to be a trainer, Lucien said. Then he turned his gaze to Zoroa. Anna, I hope you get along well with Zoroa. Yes, teacher, I will. Anna nodded vigorously. That's right, Lucien later murmured to himself. Once Anna and Zoroa grow strong enough, I can send them to explore the unknown lands, places with berries to gather, and wild Pokémon to discover. For now, his own strength alone was not enough. Dratini still needed time to grow. But with Anna and Zoroa, that gap could be filled. That evening, after dinner, Dratini, exhausted from a full day of training, curled up under the quilt and fell asleep early. Lucien remained at the table, listening as Elif reported the day's progress. Your Highness Lucien, the fourth cabin is complete. Progress is steady. If no accidents occur, everyone in the territory will have proper housing by the end of the month. Well done. Lucien nodded approvingly, then looked around. Noticing a certain absence, he asked, Where are the Snover? Elif bowed slightly. It seems one of the children invited them into their tent. Lucien. It seemed the children had accepted the Snover far faster than Lucien had imagined. By the way, Your Highness, the foraging team just returned, and 2 people want to see you, Elif reported. Oh? Who are they? Let them in. Lucien said in surprise. Elif nodded, and soon brought in 2 women dressed as peasants. They exchanged a somewhat stiff greeting, then handed Elif a basket. Elif carried the basket forward and presented it to Lucien. One of the women explained, Your Highness Lucien, we found this amazing fruit outside today. Lucien looked down and saw a yellow, pear-like fruit in the basket. Is this a citrus berry? We picked from the tree the day we first arrived. We thought it would take ages for the fruit to grow back, but today, the branches are already heavy with fruit again, the woman said excitedly. This meant they would be able to gather even more food. Lucien wasn't overly surprised. After all, citrus berries were miraculous in their own right, and in the Pokémon world they grew abundantly in the wild, sustaining countless Pokémon. This plentiful resource was truly a gift from nature. Thank you for your hard work, Lucien said. Also, don't throw away the seeds after eating.
Save them for spring so we can plant an orchard.
Yes, the women replied eagerly. The citrus berry was indeed a treasure.
It could be eaten as food and was also capable of restoring a Pokémon's vitality. Lucien felt relieved.
With these berries, their chances of surviving the winter had greatly improved.
This truly was the wondrous world of Pokémon. Perhaps even the anime's utopian landscapes could only exist because of these miraculous fruits, capable of sustaining both humans and Pokémon alike. The two women bowed and left. Lucien glanced at the sky outside and said, "Elif, it's getting late.
You should rest as well."
"Yes, Your Highness." After Elif withdrew, Lucien took a citrus berry to the bedside and held it under Dratini's nose. Dratini, sound asleep, twitched its little nostrils.
Soon, its eyes opened, gazing at Lucien with a watery, drowsy look.
"Want to try it?" Lucien asked softly, shaking the berry. "Moon."
Dratini yawned, then instantly drifted back into slumber, looking utterly exhausted. It had truly given its all in training today. The dragon energy in its body was completely spent, it had no strength left. All it wanted now was a long, deep sleep. Lucien felt a pang of tenderness at Dratini's adorable state. But remembering how hard it had worked that afternoon, he couldn't help but sigh. If only this were the modern era. Then he wouldn't have to worry about so many things. Dratini wouldn't have to endure harsh training in the snow and wind. He could prepare delicious poke puffs and poffins for it instead. But this was 1,000 years in the past.
Lucien sighed silently.
He undressed, lay down, and gathered the cold shy Dratini into his arms, letting his own body heat warm it as much as possible.
"Sleep," Lucien whispered. "Woo." Dratini nuzzled into Lucien's chest, instantly soothed by the warmth.
A soft, content cry escaped its lips. Lucien chuckled softly, realizing Dratini really was just like a child. But then he remembered, Dratini was still barely a year old. Of course, it was a child. And here he was, making a child train out in the freezing wind and snow. The thought deepened his guilt. That wraps up this part of What If Transmigrated to a Medieval Pokémon World.
Thanks so much for listening.
As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well.
See you in the next one.